There is always a fine line.
There's always a fine line between kidding and not kidding. That's what we talked about pre-air. It's October 7th. It's a Thursday. Welcome aboard, folks. This is the Crushing Iron Podcast, and we are episode 519.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big number.
Yeah.
Big number, big week, big goals. Big podcast coming at you today.
Yep.
Hope you've had an amazing week so far. It has been good for us. I hope you've had a stellar week. Some fun racing coming up this weekend. You got Ironman Texas coming up this week on Saturday. They're finally going to have it for whatever reason. Who cares? They're having it. And check online. We have somewhere. I think you posted a really awesome course preview, the Ironman Texas preview with Coach Nicole.
I did,
who
yeah.
lives basically on the course. And I think that that's a what? Is that on our podcast feed or is it on?
No, it's not on our. It's It's under the. We have a podcast feed for C26 Coachcast.
Got it.
If you want to look that up, and obviously I posted it in the Facebook group with the link. Yeah.
Did you do okay on Monday when Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp app, and Amazon all went down at once?
Did Amazon go down too?
I think Amazon went down for a bit too.
Yeah. Well, obviously, yeah, I did. You know, it was actually kind of nice.
Yeah, I loved it. You and I were in the office together, and you were like, "Yeah." I was like, "Good." Hope
I
it's down.
know. I can't get on. But
For me, it'd be like those were zero stressors for me. I'm sure other people had like massive anxiety. Anything about people in, like the digital marketing world, I'm sure they were like freaking out at the moment.
a lot of people depend on it for
A
their
lot of
business,
people
including
depend
us
on
in a little bit of a way. But
I mean,
like I said, our podcast, I couldn't post. The podcast was
Right.
done, and I'm sure everybody's like, well, they'll probably just do it Tuesday or whatever.
Yeah, we're flexible like that.
But I looked at our number, like, I think we had a bigger first day than we've had in a long time. So people just get notified. I guess Facebook's irrelevant.
Yeah, but I would have had a panic attack if Training Peaks had gone down.
Well, that's
for
the
6
thing,
hours.
right?
People would have absolutely freaked. And I'm like, man, what if Training Peaks went down for a week? What would people do? People would freak out. People would legit freak out.
I think that's what freaked me out the most is the thought that something like that could happen. And then, like, what are we going to do? Because we immediately started talking about maybe it's time to send out our first email list blast.
First
We got,
e-blast.
thousands of people on our email list. We've never sent one.
Hey, we're just
Because we don't want to
flying by the
bother
seat of
you.
Yeah, we don't want to bother people.
If
We
you have
just like
ideas
to-
for like what would be a good email, you know.
yeah, shoot us an email and tell us what a good email
Newsletter.
would be. That's right, send us a newsletter. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, we don't bother you with stuff like that.
Yeah.
But we want it to make it worth it.
Yeah, just like we hope this podcast is worth it. If it's your first time tuning in, welcome. We hope you enjoy today's podcast. If you're first time tuning in, we appreciate it. We have a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general, so we appreciate you giving us your time. We cover it all. We cover swim, bike, run, detailed podcasts, I think we will today. We do race recaps. We do race previews. We'll occasionally have on a guest of our choice. But for the most part, Mike and I as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just kind of sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through personally, what our athletes are going through. We work with a wide range of athletes from across the globe, from beginners to overall winners at big events, including Ironman. And so it's always kind of nice to take the general pulse of the community of athletes that we work with. And then we also can dive into our closed group, which is on Facebook. You can search that at Crushing Iron Group, answer one simple question, we'll let you right in. And there's a lot of awesome people in there, a lot of people that could be great resources, whether you're a beginner or a seasoned vet. A lot of awesome people in there willing to give their advice, unsolicited or solicited, and hopefully set you off in a better direction. But that's it. We just hope to deliver a message that is consumable and specific yet generic enough to where you feel like you can make it your own. We are not professionals. We are not experts. We just been around for a very, very, very long time and work with a lot of athletes, and that's where our knowledge and experience comes from. And that's the genesis of why we started this podcast, was to share some of that and to talk through things. But yeah, no sponsors, no ads, one agenda. Let's keep you happy and healthy in your sports journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, how's that going for you?
It's happy and healthy.
Yeah, how was your swim yesterday? You're back.
So it's been, to be honest with you, it's been nice. Okay. The last few weeks and months, because it's been all about Mike to Raleigh, Ironman Chattanooga. And you've been training. I've been doing jack crap, which I'm a little disappointed in myself in. I hope to fix that for this next year. But we started the cast. I was like, you got a topic, Fred? And you're like, yeah, you. We're talking about you today. I was like, great. This is my worst nightmare. My swim yesterday, I will call it hopeful. It was a hopeful swim. I was honestly I wasn't dreading it, but I want to commit more to actually going to the pool. Because I feel more at home there. It's obvious. We have an endless pool here at the hub in Chattanooga, so it's obviously incredibly easy to just hop in there and do your thing. But I feel much more at home in the pool. You know, it makes me feel it kind of, if you swam me around at any point and you're a swimmer, you know that feeling. You just feel at home in the water. I feel at home on the pool deck. So I got in, and I haven't swam like I think I've swam like 2 or 3 times since I did Ohio 70.3, and to be totally honest, like even before that, I was not swimming nearly as much as I should have. And I got in the water. I had about 2,500 on tap for the day. And I was a little bit worried that things were going to feel really, really not good, that I was going to fatigue really, really early. And don't get me wrong, I did. I fatigued pretty early. I just did 200s. I warmed up, then I did 4 200s descending on 330. Then I did 3 300s descending on 340. Then I did 2 200s descending on 350, giving myself like gradually more rest because I knew I was going to fatigue. And I was pleased. I mean, I was happy that I stuck with it. I did all of them swim, no buoy, no paddles, which is kind of like my forte. I've always gone to. I wanted to kind of see where my general overall body fitness was. My last 200, I averaged 119s, so I was happy with that. At the same time, I get very discouraged isn't the word. I kind of beat myself up sometimes because I did grow up swimming year round. That I feel very fortunate that I can just hop in the pool and do that after such a long layoff. And that also caused me to kind of like kick myself in the rear for me, like, dude, don't stop wasting this shit. Like, just if you want to really do it right. Get back in the pool 3 days a week, work hard like it's your weakest, not like you can just kind of mail it in because you've swam year round growing up. You know, there's people out there, I'm obviously not an elite level swimmer. There's plenty of people there that would kill to be able to hop in and drop, a 119 yard average on your last 200 of the day.
Yeah, you're looking at
I'm looking at one of them, so I feel like I'm doing myself a disservice and my previous experience a disservice. But that's one of my I have goals for next year, but what I really wanted to do, and we talked about this, we were going to go into it on Monday's podcast, but we never end up getting there, which is, kind of par for the course, was I want to talk about my kind of setting up micro goals, because a lot of people have races that are really, really, really far away, that they focus on races. But one of my goals for this coming year, because I know that I need a swim goal. I can't just say I want to do this when I race, because I'll always kind of veer off, kind of like you used to say on the bike, I've kind of always biked, and mountain bike is my thing. I can kind of pick it up, and you kind of always use that as you're like, I don't need to go today. I kind of got this. Like, what's the extra work going to do? But for me, it's not so much the how much improvement. I think it's the attention to continuously trying to get better at a sport that includes all three, not just 2 and a 1, but all 3 together, and how they affect each other collectively. Because I've noticed myself, like that was one of the biggest things I noticed on my ride in Ohio, where I was so frustrated and feel like I had no legs. It was 100% my fault because I didn't swim enough. I think we talked about that post-race, was that, listen, it doesn't matter how well you train on the bike, because I feel like I had some of the best bike fitness that I've ever had. And I knew it 20 miles in. I was like, dude, you effed yourself. You effed yourself by not swimming enough to where you got out of the water feeling like the swim was nothing. And you're getting penalized for it right now. So no matter what kind of bike fitness that you had at your peak, you're not going to be able to do that because you're already fatigued, in your body. And so one of my goals for this time of year is I want to do an off the wall 100 at a sub minute, which we did, I think, a month and a half, 2 months ago, I did a 107. And so I think, while 7 seconds is a lot of time, I think I can do it. I think my 9-year-old self would laugh at me at the fact that I'm trying to do that in my 40s, but that is a goal that I have for this coming year, is to swim a 100 off the wall in less than a minute. And so that's what I need as an athlete to kind of keep me going back to the pool. It's kind of like a tangible goal. I also have one for cycling and running that have nothing to do with my total time at a 70.3. But what I also know is that if I'm able to achieve these 3 goals, and the swim goal, bike goal, and run goal that I have in my training, that if I can do those, then I know without a doubt I'll have the fitness to probably get close to the goal I want to have at a 70.3. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's an important thing for athletes to kind of figure out this time of year, is to work their way backwards And instead of just kind of taking the general approaches of what most athletes do, they're like, all right, my goal next year is to do sub 6. I want to go sub 6 hours in a 70.3. And then you ask them and you're like, all right, well, how are you going to do that? And like, well, at Tricock, I can swim 35, I can bike 245, I can run this and give or take transitions. That gives me around 555, 6 hours. Okay, well, how are you going to get there? How are you going to get those splits? And then like, well, I don't know. Like, I just figure I'll just get better. I'm like, you can't do that. You have to really, really understand and kind of peel back the layers of the onion and understand like, all right, if I really want to get better because this one, and I was thinking of this in my run this morning, is how the majority of athletes look at testing as the method of, am I getting faster, right? Am I really, really, really improving? But for the same high percentage of those athletes that really truly focus on long distance racing, your 20-minute FTP should mean nothing, right? It should mean nothing. It should be very little. If you want to really look at how fit you are becoming, then look at your best 2-hour power and how aerobic you kept it, and how low your heart rate. Like, that's the thing I think people should have goals for this time of year, is like pick your favorite, 8-mile, 10-mile route. Go run it right now. Run it at an easy, like kind of zone 2 pace, and see what your average heart rate is. And so let's say it's a 9-minute pace and your average heart rate was 145. Okay, then you go on a big run block. Instead of trying to do like a 5K test, go out in 3 months and do the same route. And then the goal should be to have a faster pace at a lower heart rate or the same heart rate. That shows you that you're becoming aerobically efficient. I think especially with the day and age where it's all about testing. That's like the big buzzword people have in all of these, online virtual programs, really kind of ramp test and, this test and this test. And you're like every workout is a test. And most of the time athletes say I got home earlier than I thought I would. Like I went and ran my usual 6-mile route. That's when athletes know they're kind of peaking or they're getting into really, really, really good shape. Is they go like, I went out in my usual, 40-minute loop and I came back in 36. And you're like, yeah, that means we're getting fit. Like that, those are the kinds of benchmarks I think athletes should look for this time of year, instead of putting like this enormous amount of pressure on a high intensity day to really, really express. Because listen, testing is a lot like racing. You gotta wake up having all the goods to have your perfect race, and to have the perfect test to really show your fitness. You have to wake up with all the goods. And the chances of you waking up with all the goods, with given life and how things go and stress, that's like not always going to happen. And so I think having like little micro goals that you can set for yourself that are achievable, but also don't have a deadline, right? Like mine is just between now and the end of next year, I want to complete these 3 goals. I want to swim under 100 at a certain pace. I want to hold a certain power for an hour, and then I want to run a certain time for a 5K. None of those are related to like 70.3s and fulls. They're all, it's like my 5K route from my house. Like these are all kind of like training related goals. But what I also know is if I work towards making those and I still meet them at any point next year, then I know I'm going to be in the kind of shape that's going to probably yield a pretty decent result for me. Instead of kind of starting at the very, very end where I want to shoot for, I want to beat my previous 70.3 PR by doing this. It's like you're just kind of like swinging at a pinata blindfold. You're like, I think if I do this, but you have to have things that can be measured, but not on a week to week, but more like after months and months and months go by.
Well, that was a perfect example of a teacher saying, wait till I'm done before you ask questions, because I had like 16 questions in that, what you're talking about right there, and you answered all of them. So
I saw you look at me like, is he ever going to shut his mouth? Like, well, you said it's all about me, but
yeah, I knew I shouldn't have said that. It's all you today. But so I was going to ask though, and you kind of answered at the end there. I was kind of going like, okay, so what does under 100 or 100 under a minute have to do with anything? But like you just said, in the process, you think that, that will sort of start taking care of itself or whatever. And I get that, it's sort of my thing, as you said, is cycling. And I did it, I think once this summer where I hadn't been riding for like 3 weeks or something like that. And I was like, I'm going to go take a test right now. And sure enough, I hit my FTP from like 2 years ago or whatever in a 20-minute test. That's kind of like similar to what you're saying as far as jumping in the pool and throwing down 119s, kind of in the ballpark without even trying. But I was going to ask too, How did you feel after? How far did you end up swimming? And did you feel
2,400.
fatigue? Did you feel like a fatigue every once in a while? Like sometimes, you know how swimming can just kind of just throw that shiv in your spine, and you're like, just like fall into your bed the minute you get home.
Yeah, it didn't hit me as hard as I was expecting. And my fastest 200 was my last. And I think I really did try to take my easy ones incredibly easy and then really get after it on my hard. So there was a lot of easy swimming in there. And
that's funny that you went right back into swimming after not swimming for a long time, and it went right at the hard stuff.
Well, the reason I went after it wasn't. I would say, but 200s to me aren't. They can't be that hard because right now I don't have a zone 4 and zone 5, because I just don't have the anaerobic capacity to do that. It was more like this is all I have, zone 3 pushing it. Because 200s are just long enough to where you can start to fatigue pretty early. But what I wanted to do was just kind of get it. Also, the reason I did it was kind of just get a general overall feeling of where are you? So next time you get in the water, now I know what to expect. So I wouldn't necessarily consider it like going after the hard stuff I didn't do. Now, don't get me wrong. At the very end, I thought, all right, if you want to go sub 1 minute in, pushing off the wall for 100, we better find out where you are right now. So then I remembered back to a month and a half ago when I did it at the Y in Green Hills, or in June. I guess was it June? No, it was sometime in July or August. I was in Nashville, and I was like, I think it shelled me for like 2 days. I was like, I think I worked so hard. My eyes were bloodshot for like the rest of the night. Like I had that, like I was hungry. I was like exhausted. But no, I wasn't overly shelled. Like I wasn't incredibly tired. I think it was a good thing I kept it at like, 2,500, so going out and doing like, 35 or 4,000. I kept it in. And again, like they were descending. So I had a lot of easy and I had a ton of rest. Like I really built those up to where, because even my slow ones were around 130. And so 130 is 3 minutes. My lowest interval was 3:30. So I still had 30 seconds rest between every 200. So
can you elaborate on that a little bit? Because I get a lot of people saying, how much rest should I take? Obviously take the rest.
Right. And so like if you looked at the set I did, the main set was 4 200s descending, meaning you want your first one to be your slowest and your last one to be the fastest. And then 330 rest, I was doing them on 330. So doing them on 330 means I had 330 to do the interval, to do the 200 and rest for a start of the next one. And then the next one I wanted to be a little bit faster, and then the third one a little bit faster and for a little bit faster. But then the next set I did, even though it was 3 200 instead of 4, I added on 10 seconds because I knew I was going to be fatigued. Like I knew in order to do the 200s the way I was supposed to do them, I was going to need more rest. So I gave myself 10 more seconds rest. And then the last set, which was 2 200s versus the first 4, instead of doing them off 330, I went off 350 because I gave myself even more rest, because as you go on, and this is very, very common, like you said, like if you know your form is going to fall apart, and I think it's always important for athletes to ask themselves, what's the intent of the workout, right? And a lot of athletes are, well, I don't want to take a lot of rest because it takes up too much time. I just want to get out of there. I want to get my things done. It makes my average pace on Strava look slower when I take this extra rest. Like if the point of it was to go descending and to get faster, then I need the extra rest. Mm-hmm. So I rested 30 seconds, and then on the second set of 200s, I got an extra. So I was resting for 40 seconds and then 45 because I went down to like 125, 123, 120. So I was getting like 50 seconds rest. Who cares? I did the 200s like I was supposed to do, which was descending, which was to me better than doing. So let's say, for example, giving myself that much rest. I went from the first set of 4, I went from 130s to 127s to 123s to 120. So I worked my way down all the way to the last one being at 120s, the first set I did. And I was only able to do that because I had plenty of rest. If I had given myself 15 seconds of rest, what you probably would have seen is 130s, 128s, 130s, and maybe even like 132s, 133s, because I would have fatigued so quickly, not having enough rest, that I would have ended up going actually slower, working harder on the last one, which had been counterproductive. Mm-hmm. And I always tell athletes, it's always best to take more rest if it's going to allow you to complete the next interval the way you're supposed to do it. If you're going to do it right. And that's the point. That's something that you and I talk about a lot when we have athletes getting in those pool. Is like, all right, we yell at them, all right, do this. And then they don't do it the first one. Like, stop. If you're going to do it, do it right. The same thing goes for if they're doing it right and they've gone for like a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, they've really changed their stroke pattern. Then all of a sudden they take like 2 or 3 bad strokes and they're getting fatigued. They revert back to that, their old stroke pattern. Boom, stop them. If we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. And that's something that I think people have to stay engaged with, especially with swimming, because it is so technique focused that once you get so fatigued, it no longer becomes about holding form and doing things of purpose. It becomes about getting me to the end of the pool so I can start again, to get to the other end of the pool so I can be done and rest. Mm-hmm. And then all you're doing is working on bad form and not working on anything specifically. So there's nothing there. I'll never get on an athlete for taking extra rest, because if you need it that day, then you need it that day. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But most athletes hop on deck and they're just in a hurry to get done with it. So instead of doing their 2,000, total of 2,000 with intervals in between, they just swim 2,000 straight easy so they can get out of the pool and get back to whatever they're supposed to do in, 10 extra minutes. Like, I've clocked myself before when I've done that, and I've been like, all right, I'm just going to swim 400 or 500 today instead of the set's going to take 2,000 because I need to save some time. And then I do the same set again later in the week by doing it the exact way I'm supposed to and swimming fast and taking rest. I think it saves me like all of 3 minutes or 3 or 4 minutes, because the intervals aren't 2.5 minutes long. They're like 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds. You got to do 4 of those just to shave a minute off, right? So I think people just have to stay focused. And like I said, if you need more rest, take more rest.
Okay, so since we're talking about micro goals and we're kind of diving into the weeds here of how to do a swim workout, I think it's also important that you said you do. How do you think about starting that process when you're like, okay, my first set hundreds are going to be at 130, and then you end at 120 or whatever, but like, aside from maybe taking longer when you turn or something, you know what I mean? Like, what is your thought process when you're going out to swim that first set of a descending set, and how do you get there? Like, what does that feel like in the water? Like, what are you holding back on? Are you just not being as aggressive with your catch and just kind of letting your arms kind of move through the water because you said you warmed up first, right? So you're ready to go. You could have put down a 119 up front.
For sure.
So
I probably could have gone 116, but the rest of the workout would have sucked because I would have been gassed.
Exactly. So I think this is a massive question for people.
No, it is a great.
Because they can't understand effort in the water.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's like kind of the same thing we talked about in terms of like focusing on negative split runs. It's like if you want your last mile to be your fastest, then you better focus on making your first mile the slowest and working your way down. And that's like how I approached it. Was I wasn't shooting for a time goal. It just ended up being what it ended up being. But so for 200s for me are easy to break down into descend through, because how I broke it down was the first 200, it was all easy. Like the easiest, longest, strongest strokes that I could possibly take. I wasn't getting a faster turnover. I didn't work off the walls. I just it was like my warm-up pace. Because what I wanted to do was give myself room to drop it down at least 5 seconds at the end. Not 5 seconds per, but at least like see some kind of movement. The next one, I kept it easy for 150 and worked for 50. The third one, I kept it pretty easy for 100 and worked for 100. So as you see, like I went from the first one of working none. The second went to working 50 of the 200. The second one, I worked half of it, which got me faster times, but it also kept going easy to start, allowed me to gauge how much left I had to give at the end of the 200 versus saying, all right, I'm gonna shoot off the wall for the second 200. My first one was at 131, 132. I'm going to drop it down. I'm going to start, pacing it at 127s off the bat. No, I probably honestly swam 130, 131 for the first 150 of that 200, but then brought it home pretty quickly. Same thing with the second one. I probably took it out the first 100 at, again, 130s, 101s, or excuse me, 130s, 131s for the first 100 of that 200. And then the second one, I probably went back at 120s, again, giving me the average of 125. Instead of going out at 125, I probably would have fatigued and ended up dropping because I couldn't hold it for that long on my third one. And then the last one was just get after it at a solid pace and see what you can hold for 200. And that one was obviously the hardest one to maintain, because after, even with a lot of rest, after like the first 50 to 75, I was already fatigued, man. I was like, I just don't have the fitness, but it was just grind it out and get done with it and see where it was. And it was around 119, 120 for that. And then the next one I started out the same, because you start over again. So the three 200s, I went back. I think I was like 132, 133 pace for the first one off the deck. I was like, I'm just going to take this as slow as I possibly can. as easy. And I really just kind of focused on long, perfect strokes, perfect catch, just not overly worried about pushing off the walls and turnover and the stuff that actually, will make you go faster. It was just keeping it easy. And I was using it as like active recovery, like catching my breath, shaking out my arms a little bit because they were already gassed from not having swam a lot. But that's like, to me, and you bring up a really great point, and athletes comment this to us both frequently, is like, I have two speeds in swimming: slow and fast, nothing in between. And I think you have to, and so when athletes come and work with us in this pool, I've always found that athletes that can swim 2 minute average 100 or better can find multiple gears. They obviously have the fitness and the form that allows them to probably swim a 2:15 easy, and also swim a probably a 1:40 all out, giving themselves a fairly wide range that they can go between. Above 2 minutes, and especially like 2:20, 100 athletes, they have 2:20, they have 2:15 and 2:30. That's about it. They don't have any more gears because their fitness and their technique is such that they just can't hold it long enough, or they don't have the capacity to go any faster because they haven't been doing it long enough. So I always tell, one of the first things, what's your usual 100 time? Well, I cruise around, 2 minutes. Like, then we can make usually some pretty substantial gains because you obviously have enough fitness to hold it for a long enough time to do just enough work to where we could probably just change a few technique things. You can drop down on the 130s, 140s, giving yourself, again, even more gears, because the thing about swimming is that not all of your gears have to come from fitness. They come from form. Like, one of the things I focused on yesterday when I was really trying to up my gear was finishing far back as I could. Mm-hmm. That made me faster. It wasn't an aerobic thing. It was a technique thing. And so that's like one of the, and again, swimming is the opposite of running and riding for so many athletes. Whereas if you and I tell an athlete, hey, run faster or bike harder, it's a simple 1-to-1. Okay, move my arms fast, or move my whole body faster with running, move my legs faster, and then cycling, it's move my legs harder and push a harder gear. That equates to higher watts, faster pace, bigger output, better speed. Swimming isn't like that for most people. Most people work so hard to go nowhere, they end up throwing all technique and form out the window because they think, again, that 1-to-1 ratio of, all right, work harder equals go faster. And for most people, unless they're very, very efficient and have very good technique in swimming, it actually goes the opposite. They actually become slower, which is why a lot of times when we write our programs and swim workouts, we will say all out sometimes and fast, but a lot of times we'll say 90% strong, because that allows enough room for people to go faster, but to remind themselves the focus is still on form. And most people go faster at 90% effort and perfect form than they do 100% all out.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's interesting because basically what you're talking about there, and this is what I always think about when I'm either running or cycling and doing stuff like that, is not only were you negative splitting the individual intervals, you're negative splitting the entire set of things. And that's what I like to think about a lot when I'm running or something, or like even if I'm going to get in the pool and do 6 500s or whatever it is. And I always think about in terms of, okay, my first 500 will be my slowest, but within that 500, my second 250 will be a little bit faster than my first 250. And then you kind of go down the ladder that whole way. And then I think one of the most exciting things to me is if let's say I do my first 500 in 9 minutes or something like that. If I do my second one in 8:57, that is really exciting to me because I know that I'm getting a good handle on that. And that's one of the things with when you go out to negative split, let's say a hour run, and you do it by 30 seconds, or like you have like a real, and then at the end of that, you have a lot left. It's like, okay, yeah, I really paced that pretty well, and you have control. And I think that's what thing about swimming is it's so interesting. That's why I asked that question is like, how do you do slow, or how do you think about going at an easy pace? Because most people can't really do that. It's very difficult to do that. But I think in a lot of ways it becomes, sort of, keeping, not changing your stroke per se, but not engaging it as much, or something like you were just saying about how you push back further as you want to go faster. You're just like, you're using more of the stroke and you're being more aggressive with it, and you're getting a more aggressive catch and a stronger catch and really engaging more muscles in the process, but you're not changing your stroke.
Yeah. When I want to go like really easy, like I channel my inner total immersion. And I'm like, all right, I want to be slow and soft and delicate with this 200. You need to make it easy. You need to have plenty of oxygen. Be careful with yourself. Don't overextend. Be soft. Be gentle. Don't splash. There are people in the lane beside you. Treat yourself with care. And then after that, I'm like, all right, let's get this down to business. But no, I always think about, and this is again like a visual that we try to give athletes when they come in for a swim analysis, is like there's 360 degrees of opportunity, right? You have the 180 degrees in which your arm is out of the water. Then you have the 180 degrees in which your arm and your hand is in the water. Obviously, the 180 degrees above the water means nothing, really. Like you can have high elbow, no elbow, wide arm, long arm, whatever it is, as long as it allows you to reach far out and exit far back. So I always think about inches. Inches make me go faster, reaching farther and grabbing another inch ahead of me and then finishing back and getting inches behind me. Like I always, when I'm in a pretty good groove in the pool, a good thing especially if you're an athlete that does flip turns, one of the best things that when you kind of get close to the wall and you're kind of stuck in that happy medium of, all right, I could make this a one stroker to the wall, or I could make two choppy strokes, right? To get to the wall, you kind of come up in that like odd space. You're like, all right, one stroke and then kind of like a half stroke and then I start over again. I always try to like get myself to where I'm almost close enough. But in order to get to the wall and do my turn, I have to take a giant stroke. Like I really have to reach far, far, far and grab as much water. I'm like, wait a minute. It got me there faster with same effort and I covered a more of a distance than I usually am. That's making me go faster. It's about inches. It's about inches in front and inches behind.
But it's being able to control.
It's being able to control that, right? And doing it with purpose and and reining it in. It's all right. So there's reaching with purpose and there's grabbing with purpose. Like you said, like do you focus more on your catch? And usually when I'm trying to go very easy, I focus on having good form. But I also kind of revert back to what I tell when I'm going really, really easy, because technique is always paramount with swimming. It's always going to make you go faster. And so it's always good to keep good form even when you go slow. It's just for me and for a lot of athletes, it's that switch of, and we tell people this too, is like most athletes think of moving their arms through the water, right? Or they're moving their stroke happens within the water, right? They're two separate things. But in order to swim fast, you have to think about using your arm to grab the water, to push the water backwards, because ultimately that is what propels you forwards. So you can have that mentality of, I just need to move my arms through the water and within the water and then exit and do it all over again. That's going to keep me nice and calm and smooth. Or I can think of grabbing the water and pushing it back. And usually just that kind of change in approach to swimming pushes people forward faster, which obviously makes them faster. It will obviously also make your arms fatigue a little bit more because you're grabbing more. It's like you're lifting a larger weight.
Right.
But that's also why going easier and swimming through the water, kind of within the water, allows you to go easy and it feels easier because you're not really focusing on the grab and the push and the pull backwards. It's just kind of like going through the motions, but keeping the motions correct. It's kind of like when you want people to run slow and easy, but you don't want them to have shitty form. Right? Mm-hmm. You want them to you want to keep technique, but you don't want to be so it's honestly, it's kind of like just a slower, more methodical technique approach to swimming easy than it is. And then once you want to move up a gear, you know what gear comes first. And for me, the first gear when I want to swim faster is grabbing more water at the front. That gives me another gear. I go from, gear 1 to gear 2. That'll drop me another second because I'm grabbing more water at the front for more purpose. I don't want to grab too much because I'm going to go faster. It's going to be harder. And my turnover is going to get quicker because another thing that people underestimate when they have like a very, very hard time breathing is because they probably have too fast of a turnover. And if your turnover is too fast and you breathe every stroke, you're giving yourself less time to breathe. Again, why having longer, stronger strokes when you're going easy is more beneficial because when you take a breath to the right, your opposite side, the left, is taking a long stroke, which allows you to breathe longer, right? So it's like That's a long, strong stroke versus, when you're doing like a zone 3, you're just trying to get a little bit of oxygen in. And then if I want to take it down another gear, it's the finish. It's focusing on the finish, taking the inch in the front, inch in the back. That usually gets me out to gear 3. And then in order to get to gear 4, it's you do all that, but you get a faster turnover. You just kind of move through the water, and you're breathing not erratic, but it becomes obviously more frequent. But the span in which you can intake oxygen is shorter because your stroke rate is now higher.
You said something earlier about the 2-minute guideline or the 2-minute benchmark.
Right.
And that really makes me think about a lot with triathlon, and just like it applies to running and cycling and swimming. And I think if you can cruise around 2 minutes, what you're really doing is you have momentum. I mean, I think there's a momentum breakoff point, because the people that struggle, that may swim like at a 2:30 pace or whatever, they have to have way more problems with their legs sinking, and there's got to be all kinds of issues because there's a disconnect between moving forward and actually, stalling. So, and the same goes for running. I think at certain points, things become easier just because of momentum. Or if on the bike, like if you're always going, whatever, at a 12 miles an hour pace, every time you hit a hill or anytime there's any kind of disruption, it becomes harder and harder. So you have to get, I think one of the key takeaways in a way is like, if you get to a 2-minute pace, then all of a sudden you're kind of moving through the water better, and it makes things easier. So like what you're saying about, I love that part about like reaching out and getting that extra inch, because if you're not going that fast and you don't get that extra inch and you're shorting everything up, then you're going to be, like your body position is going to go to hell and the whole 9 yards. So, but I do think that once you hit that point, and like for me, you talk about, if you're strong enough to have that long reach and get that extra inch and pull that off, if you're strong enough to hold that off, there's a definite difference, almost like you're creating, you're adding more weight to the lift, right? Yeah. So, but you can do the same exact lift with less weight, the same exact form. I always talk about deadlifts. You lift 100 pounds the same way as you would 200 pounds, exact same movements, should be. Same thing with swimming. And how do you create a 100-pound lift with that same exact reach? Is it's like you just don't engage as much as you're going through. But if you're not swimming below 2 or around that range, doing that is going to make you really slow down too much or whatever. So it's an interesting dichotomy or dynamic to think about. In fact, because I always talk about running with momentum or cycling with momentum, especially if you have good momentum, you can pedal with less power and be going faster sometimes, and
it's all about efficiency, right? It's like telling somebody that they've got 360 degrees of pedal efficiency, and you tell them if you, all right, just spin real easy. And like most people, I'll just engage like the first, from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock in my pedal stroke, and they'll kind of take the back easy. The harder they want to go, they engage the back half, right? Because they have to really work the entire time to pull it up, push over, pull it up, push over, pull it up, push it over. And people just have a hard time thinking that way when it comes to, and same thing for running. When we talk about running economy, it's like, you see people who shuffle with barely get their feet off the ground. They're just using their quads to move it up and over. They don't engage their hamstrings or glutes or anything. You're like, what do you mean? You're not going to get any faster without
ask a quick question on that. It's related to that exactly with the swim, because it just popped in my head. It's like, yeah, you're reaching out here, but you have a long reach. That's not your power zone, right? So it's the same thing as a bike stroke. Right, you have at certain places more power to push through, and then you have to almost, like, for lack of a better word, be able to let off, but still keep momentum.
Yes.
So like if you're reaching out there, you're not like giving everything you got at the beginning. You're just getting it and then getting to a place that's closer in where your power zone is, and then you're really kind of going through there, and then through the back, you don't have as much power either. Yep. It's similar to a pedal stroke.
It's very similar. The power zone in swimming is the middle zone, right? Because I always break it down to 33s, 33.3% in the front, 33% in the middle, 33% in the back. That middle 33% gets you 60 to 70% of your propulsion. It's not like a 33 to 33 ratio of 33% of your propulsion comes in the front, 33% in the middle. But if you break it down into, 3 segments of your stroke, you grab on the front end. But here's the thing though, is that if you don't get out way in front of your stroke and grab water for the first 33 and a third, you're not going to be in position to use the middle. which is your power phase, which is that where your arm, your forearm should be totally vertical. That's the power phase of your stroke. The finish, again, that 33% might net you, an extra 10 to 15%. Again, not a 33 to 33, but it's the icing on the cake. So if I had to break it down, it would be like a cupcake, because people love food and cupcakes. If I had to break down the three phases, I'd say the first part is the icing, the middle part is the whole cake, and the last part is the sprinkles. It's like you focus on those, the front two first. The back part is just the add. It's just like a little bit extra. It helps for sure, but it's a little bit extra, because when you think about, what about higher turnover? I see people with higher turnover. That's so therein lies literally the catch, is that when you think about people who take, like, if the meat of your stroke, that middle third gains, it helps you, gets you 60 to 70% of your propulsion forward. Well, if you end up with that, if you want to go really fast, at some point you have to give up a little bit of the sprinkles on the back end, because what you want to do, again, if you're doing a 50 or 100, if you're willing to give up maybe 3 to 4 strokes total of getting a little extra sprinkle to get back around to get a little bit more of the cake. So if you can add 4 more strokes where you get a whole lot of cake, it's going to result in a faster time than just focusing a little bit longer and easier strokes on getting those extra sprinkles. Does that make any sense?
It makes total sense.
Yeah, it's all about cupcakes, baby. It's about cupcakes and sprinkles and icing.
So the thing too about the sprinkles at the end, and I'm watching you, but that's the end of your stroke.
It's the sprinkles, baby.
But it's so interesting to me to compare swimming to cycling to running and stuff like that. But like, to me, that's the pull, or the minimal pull phase of your cycling that helps your left side get that good reach. Correct. You know what I mean? It's sort of like you're pulling up on the bike and your pedal is pounding the other side. It just gives it a little bit of extra help. And those things add up. Well,
so when you're doing that, again, like when you're cruising like 75, 80% strong, and you're focusing on sprinkles on both sides, right? Mm-hmm. Your sprinkles on the back end, on your right side, so you're finishing off. You're getting your final push. You're slamming the door shut. Your hands facing the back while you're pushing your book back. What you're doing with your sprinkles on that end is you're helping out the icing on the left.
That's because what I mean. You're setting up a good catch.
Exactly. You're connecting both. When you don't, and you enter short and you exit short, you leave 2 dead spots, okay? And dead spots create, obviously, no forward motion. But with most people, they also result in the biggest thing, which is sinking. They just start to sink. Like objects in the water, aren't going to just float. If they're not in motion, they sink, right? You look at a boat on the top of the water, and they're just hammering it out, and the engine's high up. Boom, they are cruising barely even in the water. As soon as they throttle down, they sink all the way down to the bottom, right? It's like no motion underneath you keeps you going above it. At the same time, again, going back to like being willing to give up a little bit of sprinkles on one end to get more cake and more strokes, that's when you have, if you're even in that realm of having the fitness and the technique with swimming to give up some of your sprinkles because you want to get back around for more cake in that middle early vertical forearm segment, your catch is so good that it's going to last long enough, and it's going to be strong enough to propel you forward long enough to where you can bring your arm out of the water and your other one's already getting into the catch because you've met them kind of in the middle, right? Because your catch is so good, it's moving you forward that far and that strong, and it's going to propel you forward for that long and that much of a length of time to where it's going to meet the first part of your icing on the other side. That way there is no dead spot. And then again, slamming it forward again, slamming it forward and back. But that's like way down the line for most people is you have to have, if you're, in order to consider yourself a person who can pick up their stroke rate enough to give up the sprinkles, you have to have like a 4th and 5th gear, because more than likely you giving up that last little bit for most people, unless there's someone like under 135s, 140s consistently and can gear it down to like the 120s, you're better off going for the full cupcake. You're better off having, a stroke, 20 full cupcake strokes per, 25 versus having, 14 full cupcake strokes and 6 with no sprinkles, right? You're better off having it versus, having a guy who can, or a girl who can do 115s, 110s. They might be better off having just, 23 or 24 cupcakes with no sprinkles, because they're that efficient. They're that good at their form. They're that fast. Their catch is that great they don't need to focus on the back end because what they want to do is get their arm over again so they can get back to the meat of their stroke.
Is that like Pop-Tarts without frosting?
No one should have Pop-Tarts without frosting. Like, I don't know.
How does
First of all, are you guys hungry yet? I wonder.
Cherry pies.
Yeah, I wish we had like a cupcake discount code right now for people to like hop on your favorite cupcake website and order those C26 some cupcake. No, you should always have, like, that was a big thing when I was younger. It was like,
put butter on them.
We didn't do butter, but it was like, do we get frosting on the Pop-Tarts this week? It was like we only got them on a Saturday morning, sitting there from the TV, and we all they had back then, back when I was young, was grape and strawberry Pop-Tarts. That was it. Grape frosting. Now they have the best, which is cinnamon brown sugar, which is the best Pop-Tart without question.
I don't know about that.
Where they really effed up was the s'mores Pop-Tart.
Oh, I don't know what they're doing, but I buy Pop-Tarts without frosting sometimes just so I don't eat them as fast.
I mean, but just keep them in the trunk of your car.
That's right.
Then they'd be perfect, right? In the summertime, they'd be nice and they'd be a little tender. And
I had trunk cookies this weekend, man.
Did you keep them? You didn't keep them in the trunk. You're post-Ironman. You can do whatever the hell you want to do.
I know, but still, I went hard, man. I was trying to eat.
You go hard?
I was eating great for a week, and then I was just like, what's missing? Candy Blast cookies.
Ooh, yum, Candy Blast. Listen, the most underrated cookies ever are the ones at the front of the grocery store in the clear plastic with the frosting, baby. Like, because you know what? You can take down 8 of them in like a minute.
On the way home.
Yeah, of course. I'm not that guy. I'm the guy that, like, if we go to an ice cream shop like 30 minutes away, I don't like to eat my dessert in public. I like to get my jam, sit in front of the TV, watch a little football, eat it there with a glass of milk or almond milk. I don't like to do it in public. I like to be in my own space. I like to be totally comfortable.
Really? See, I go to the grocery store for specifically the cookies, and then I end up buying, like, I could probably use some toilet paper and like some cleaning, solution. Yeah, and then I end up like it's the dumbest purchase of all time because they're looking at me like,
"What are you doing?" They're like, "Yeah, you must live alone."
Like,
no one ever buys this.
Yeah. So whatever. But
just
then it's like they just put everything in the back seat except the cookies.
Yeah, they're like, do you want your usually with like meat and poultry?
Yeah, I know. It's like, you want me to leave the Coke out of the bag?
Separated? You're like, no, I'll leave the cookies out or put them in their separate bag. I'll take that one.
I'll just carry those with my Snickers bar and a Coke.
There's just something about it. People have their things they're specific about.
Yeah. Speaking of Snickers and Coke, some lady said to me, "What'd she say?" I guess that has a name. It's like
greatness.
But
yes, there's a Coke together is greatness. Post ride run,
adrenaline combo or something. Somebody at the Publix said, the lady goes, "Oh, and you got the Snicker Coke? That's the," and I forgot what it was.
I'll have to go back and check it out.
Yeah.
The Snicker, yeah, it's the perfect combo. I don't know why more race directors don't understand this. Post race, pizza, Coke, Snickers. You don't need anything else. Stop handing out fajitas and burritos and like weak hamburgers. Coke, Snickers, pizza.
I can't deal
That's
with
it.
The hamburger in a tray thing. No. That's just.
We went through that in middle school. Okay, if you're gonna do that, you might as well hand out rectangular pizza. Okay, like we don't have time.
Although. Community pie with the
community
Detroit style. That's
if you want to wait an hour and 20 minutes to get their pizza. But yeah, everybody's got their thing, and we hope today's podcast was your thing. We didn't get to biking and cycling and running, but maybe we'll make that the next 2 casts. Maybe we'll all go into how to focus on cycling and then running. Since you guys always ask, when are you going to dive back more into the data? When are you going to go back into more specifics? Well, it's that time of year to get specific. So we'll do that for you. Hope you enjoyed today's cast. Go on our website, c26triathlon.com. It's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you're looking for a coach, want a coach, thinking about a coach, or interested in our club, do that now because spots are limited, and head to our website, check out the coaches. If you're specifically interested in the hub or the club membership and package for next year, go and reach out to Mike. He is at crushingiron@gmail.com. If you need anything from me specifically, I'm at c26coach@gmail.com. We have a lot of new gear on the website as well that we put on there yesterday. Visors, tumblers, long sleeve shirts, hoodies, you name it. We have it right now, but not for long because things are there. Last night went berserk once the whole world went back online. So check those out. And
I just want to say a note that if you order them after this podcast, there may be a week delay there.
You'll be all right. You'll make
delivery. I'm just saying,
like the rest of it. But everything is it's back ordered. Like everything else you order right now on the plan, it's like it's back ordered. It's like available. 2 items left, and you're going to book it, and you get emails like, This item is now on back order. 3.5 weeks estimated delivery. You're like, you got me. You got me again. 100% got me.
Yep. And then you forget about it, and then it comes. It's a big
It's
surprise.
like, surprise. You know?
Yeah, it's good.
It's like you didn't pay for it. Like you didn't pay for this podcast. We love you. We'll see you next week. Thanks, buddy.